I used to believe in forever. I used to believe in the promises we make when we're standing at altars, surrounded by flowers and hope and the foolish certainty that love conquers all. My name is Andrew Martinez. I'm 33 years old, and I've spent the last 5 years learning that some promises are just pretty lies, wrapped in white silk. Rachel and I met on one of those dating apps that promise to find your soulmate through algorithms and shared interests. She was 25 then, with honey blonde hair that caught the light and a laugh that made me forget whatever clever opening line I'd been rehearsing. We both loved those cooking competition shows where chefs create miracles under pressure, and we'd spend hours debating whether Gordon Ramsay was actually mean or just passionate. We both dreamed of beach vacations where the biggest decision was whether to have another piña colada. For 2 years, it felt effortless. Date nights turned into long weekends. Long weekends turned into shared keys and toothbrushes left on bathroom counters. She'd curl up against me during scary movies, and I'd make her coffee exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars, splash of vanilla creamer. When I proposed at sunset on Malibu Beach, the same place we'd had our 3rd date, she cried real tears. I thought they were tears of joy. Our wedding was everything she'd dreamed of. A small vineyard in Napa Valley. String lights draped between olive trees, her grandmother's pearl necklace gleaming against her collarbone. Rachel looked radiant in her dress, the kind of beautiful that makes men write terrible poetry and empty their bank accounts. I remember thinking as she walked down that makeshift aisle that I was the luckiest bastard alive. I'd found my person, my partner, my forever. The prenup conversation happened 3 months before the wedding, right when we were deep in the chaos of seating charts and flower arrangements and all the little details that somehow matter enormously when you're planning the best day of your life. Rachel brought it up over dinner at our favorite Italian place, sliding the idea across the table like she was discussing weekend plans. "I think we should get a prenup," she said casually, twirling pasta around her fork. I almost laughed. "We're not exactly rolling in family money here, Rach. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine." "Isn't that the point?" I replied. But she'd already thought it through. She had researched attorneys, read articles, prepared arguments about protecting ourselves from future complications. "It's not about the money," she insisted. "It's about clarity. About making sure we're choosing each other for the right reasons." 2 weeks later, we sat in Attorney Samuel's office on the 15th floor of a downtown building, surrounded by mahogany paneling and leather chairs that probably cost more than my car. Rachel looked confident, prepared, like she was signing a business contract instead of defining the terms of our love. The document was thick, full of legal language that Samuel explained in careful detail. Most of it was standard stuff: division of assets, debt responsibility, inheritance protections. But one clause stood out, printed in stark black text that would later burn itself into my memory. In the event of proven adultery by either party, the unfaithful spouse forfeits all claims to marital assets, alimony, and property acquired during the marriage. I signed without hesitation. Hell, I almost felt proud of Rachel for thinking ahead, for being practical about something I'd never considered. I'd never cheat anyway, I told her as the ink dried on our signatures. She smiled and reached for my hand across that polished conference table. "Me neither," she replied. "That's why it's easy to agree to." After the wedding, we settled into a life that seemed perfectly balanced. I worked my way up at Caldwell Financial Consulting, managing client portfolios and building toward partnership. Rachel quit her receptionist job at the dental office and focused on making our house a home. We'd agreed to wait on kids, establish our careers first, travel while we were young, build something solid before adding to it. Our Bahamas honeymoon was everything we'd dreamed of. White sand beaches that stretched for miles, water so blue it looked fake, sunset dinners where we held hands across candlelit tables and talked about our future. We'd made it work. We'd built something real. I should have paid more attention to why she wanted that prenup so badly, but I was in love. And love makes you stupid. Love makes you sign documents without questioning motives. Love makes you trust completely, even when trust is the most dangerous thing you can give away. I was about to learn that lesson in the cruelest way possible. 3 months ago, everything changed with a phone call from my boss. "Andrew, "We're promoting you to senior regional manager," he announced. The words I'd been working toward for 5 years, the recognition I'd earned through late nights, and weekend calls, and slowly building a reputation as the guy who could close impossible deals. The promotion came with a significant pay increase, enough to finally renovate our kitchen, maybe take that European vacation Rachel had been dreaming about. But it also came with travel requirements that made my stomach clench with unexpected anxiety. 3 to 4 days, once or twice monthly, visiting clients across the region. Seattle, Atlanta, Denver, Chicago, cities I'd only seen through airport windows. I brought it up over dinner that night. Chinese takeout spread across our dining room table. The promotion news sitting heavy between us like an uninvited guest. "The money's incredible," I said, trying to focus on the positive. "We could finally gut that kitchen, get the marble countertops you wanted." Rachel's face lit up in a way that surprised me. "Andrew, that's amazing!" she exclaimed. "You've worked so hard for this." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You deserve this promotion. Don't you dare feel guilty about the travel." Her enthusiasm felt genuine, warm, supportive. I kissed her forehead across the table, grateful to have a partner who understood ambition, who celebrated my success without resentment or worry. "You sure you'll be okay with me gone so much?" I asked. "I'll miss you," she said, and her smile looked so sincere I felt foolish for even asking. "But this is your career, our future. I'll be fine." The first trip to Atlanta was exactly what I expected. 3 days of client meetings in sterile conference rooms, lonely dinners at expensive steakhouses where I ate overpriced salmon while checking emails. I called Rachel every night, texted throughout the day, maintaining the connection across the distance. She seemed engaged, interested in my meetings, telling me about her days, lunch with her friend Melissa, organizing the guest bedroom closet, catching up on our cooking shows without me. "Don't feel bad about missing Hell's Kitchen," she laughed during our second night call. "I'm recording everything so we can watch together when you get back." Boston was more of the same. 3 days of presentations and client dinners and hotel rooms that all looked identical. Beige walls, generic art, windows that didn't open. Rachel and I video called each night before bed, and she always looked perfect on camera. Hair styled, makeup done, wearing the silk pajama set I'd bought her for Christmas. I never questioned why she was always so put together for our calls. Never wondered if maybe she was getting dressed up for someone other than her husband. The third trip to Denver was when I first noticed something subtle, something that should have triggered every alarm in my head, but instead floated past like background noise. Rachel seemed almost encouraging about the travel, more enthusiastic than a wife should be about her husband's absence. "You should stay an extra day if you need to," she suggested while helping me pack. "Don't rush back on my account. Give yourself time to actually close that Miller contract." I found it odd, but dismissed it as her being supportive, understanding the pressure I was under. Rachel had always been considerate that way, putting my career needs before her own preferences. I kissed her goodbye at the door, my suitcase in one hand, coffee mug in the other, feeling grateful for a wife who made sacrifice look so easy. The routine became familiar. Airport goodbyes where Rachel would kiss me and tell me to be safe. Hotel check-ins in cities that all started blending together. Client dinners where I smiled and nodded while thinking about getting home. I'd video call Rachel every night before bed, and she'd be there on my phone screen, perfectly framed, perfectly composed, asking about my day and telling me about hers. She was always available for our scheduled calls, but increasingly unavailable for spontaneous ones. "Sorry, I was in the shower," she would explain, or "I was at the grocery store and couldn't hear my phone," or "I was helping Mom reorganize her garage." Always reasonable explanations. Always delivered with a smile that looked so genuine I felt guilty for even noticing the pattern. I started noticing other things too, small changes that felt positive at the time. Rachel had started paying more attention to her appearance. New lingerie I'd find in the laundry, yoga classes she'd mentioned joining, a gym membership she'd gotten to stay busy while you're traveling. She looked incredible, glowing with a confidence that I stupidly attributed to our financial success and the stability my promotion provided. The fourth trip to Chicago was supposed to be routine. 3 days. Major contract negotiation with Brennan Industries. Home by Friday night with hopefully the biggest deal of my career locked down. But Monday night, my client Jim Brennan called me in my hotel room, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Andrew, I'm sorry, but my father had a heart attack this morning," he said wearily. "I'm flying to Tampa tonight. We'll have to postpone until next month." Suddenly, I had a chance to surprise my wife. To come home 2 days early and maybe take her out for a celebration dinner. Maybe start working on that kitchen renovation we'd been planning. I booked the first flight home Tuesday morning, grinning in the cab as I imagined her face when I walked through our front door. I wish to God I'd stayed in that hotel room. I wish I'd never heard of the Brennan account. I wish I'd been a failure at my job and never earned that promotion. Because sometimes the best opportunities lead to the worst discoveries. And the surprise you plan becomes the nightmare you can't escape. The silver BMW in my driveway hit me like a physical blow. I sat in the taxi, staring at that unfamiliar car parked where only Rachel's Honda and my Ford usually sat, and felt something cold and terrible unfold in my chest. 9:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, and there was a strange car in my driveway. Rachel didn't have friends who drove BMWs. Rachel didn't have friends who visited on Tuesday mornings when she thought I was 3 states away. "This the right address?" the taxi driver asked, looking between me and the house. "Yeah," I answered, my voice sounding strange, distant. "Yeah, this is right." I paid him with hands that trembled slightly, grabbed my bag, and stood on the sidewalk staring at my own home like it was a crime scene. Because maybe it was. Maybe it had been for months, and I was just the last person to figure it out. I could have walked through the front door. I could have called out, "Honey, I'm home," and watched whatever was happening implode in real time. But something calculating took over. Something that understood the importance of witnesses and evidence and making sure the truth couldn't be twisted later. I called David Hayes, Rachel's father, from my cell phone while standing in my own driveway. "Andrew, is everything okay?" He answered immediately, his voice carrying immediate concern. David had always liked me, treated me like the son he'd never had. "I'm not sure," I replied, letting genuine worry color my voice. "I came home early from Chicago and Rachel's not answering her phone. There's a car in our driveway I don't recognize and I'm hearing strange noises from inside." "What kind of strange noises?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but something feels wrong." "Could you and Margaret come over?" "I don't want to call the police if it's nothing, but we'll be right there," he said without hesitation. 15 minutes. That's how long I stood in my driveway, staring at that BMW, listening to the sounds floating down from our bedroom window. Rhythmic sounds, unmistakable sounds, sounds that should have been mine and Rachel's, private and sacred, but were happening with someone else while I was supposed to be 1,000 miles away. David and Margaret arrived in their white Buick, faces tight with worry. Margaret practically ran up the driveway, her maternal instincts in overdrive. "Andrew, what's happening?" she asked breathlessly. "Is Rachel okay?" I maintained my performance, the concerned husband who feared the worst but hoped for the best. "Her phone's been going straight to voicemail." "That's not like her." I gestured toward the BMW. "And I have no idea whose car that is." David studied the BMW with narrowed eyes. "Georgia plates," he observed. "You don't know anyone from Georgia?" "No one," I answered. We approached the front door together, a family united in concern. I had my key ready, but I hesitated, putting a finger to my lips. "Listen," I whispered. The sounds were clearer now, floating down from the second floor. Breathing, movement, the unmistakable rhythm of bodies moving together. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. David's face hardened with understanding. "Quietly," I whispered, unlocking the door. We moved through our living room like burglars, past the couch where Rachel and I watched movies, past the dining table where we'd planned our future, past the kitchen where she made coffee every morning and kissed me goodbye. The sounds grew louder as we climbed the stairs, more urgent, more desperate. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar. I threw it open. Rachel was on top of a man I'd never seen before, dark hair, athletic build, probably my age. They were completely naked. completely lost in each other, completely oblivious to the fact that Rachel's husband and parents were standing in the doorway watching their betrayal unfold in high definition. The split second before Rachel saw us is frozen in my memory forever. Her head thrown back in pleasure, eyes closed, moving with an urgency and passion I hadn't seen from her in months. This wasn't mechanical or obligatory. This was hunger. This was desire. This was everything I thought was mine, given freely to a stranger. Then she opened her eyes and saw us. The scream that tore from her throat could have shattered glass. The man, I'd later learn his name was Tyler Cross, scrambled backward like a spider, trying to cover himself, his eyes wide with terror. Rachel grabbed for the sheet, for her robe, for anything to hide what we'd already seen. But I was done hiding, done pretending, done playing the fool. I crossed the room in 3 steps, grabbed Tyler by his hair and yanked him off my wife and out of my bed. He was soft, panic-weak, stumbling naked across my bedroom floor. I drove my fist into his jaw with every ounce of rage I'd been building for months without knowing it. Tyler crashed into our dresser, family photos scattering to the floor, including our wedding picture. David was right behind me, grabbing Tyler's arm, driving a knee into his ribs. "You son of a bitch!" David shouted. "In my daughter's house." Meanwhile, Margaret turned on Rachel with a fury I'd never seen from the gentle woman who'd taught Sunday school for 20 years. Rachel was struggling into her robe, sobbing, trying to speak, and Margaret slapped her hard across the face. "How could you?" Margaret demanded. "How could you do this to Andrew?" "To your marriage?" "Mom, please, you don't understand," Rachel began. Margaret slapped her again, harder. "I understand perfectly," she snapped. "You're a cheating witch." David and I dragged Tyler down the stairs, his feet barely touching the ground, his naked body pathetic and vulnerable. We threw him out the front door onto the driveway, where he crawled toward his BMW, sobbing, trying to cover himself with his hands. "If I see you on my street again," David shouted after him, "I'll kill you myself." Tyler drove away naked, his clothes still scattered across my bedroom floor. When we returned inside, Rachel sat on our couch wearing only her robe, mascara streaking down her cheeks, hands shaking. Margaret stood over her like an avenging angel. "Please," Rachel whispered. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. "Explain how you've been f***ing another man in our bed while I've been working to support you. Explain how you encouraged my travel so you could have more time with him. Explain which part, Rachel?" She tried to reach for me. I stepped back like she was radioactive. "It was a mistake," she said desperately. "It just happened. I was lonely and—" "Stop," David commanded, his voice cutting through her excuses. "Just stop." Margaret looked at her daughter with disgust. "You're not coming to our house," she declared. "Mom," Rachel started. "You're not our daughter anymore," Margaret replied coldly. I walked to the front door and opened it. "Get out," I ordered. Rachel looked between her parents and me, desperate, realizing that she had nowhere to go. "No one to run to, no safety net to catch her fall. Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "Not my problem," I answered. David and I physically lifted her from the couch and walked her to the door. She was still in her robe, still crying, still begging for forgiveness that wasn't coming. We set her on the front lawn and went back inside. I locked the door behind us. Through the window, I watched Rachel sit in our front yard in her robe, surrounded by the ruins of her life, with nowhere to run and no one to save her. Then I called my attorney. The prenup Rachel had insisted on was about to destroy her completely. Funny how that works. The 60 days following that Tuesday morning played out like a perfectly orchestrated legal symphony, each movement building toward Rachel's complete and total destruction. My attorney, Patricia Goldman, had been practicing family law for 25 years. When I called her from my living room while Rachel sat crying on the front lawn, Patricia's voice carried the cool satisfaction of a professional who'd seen this scenario play out many times before. "Andrew, you said there were witnesses to the adultery?" she asked. "Her own parents saw everything," I confirmed. "Perfect," she replied. "File for divorce immediately. With parental testimony confirming adultery, that prenup becomes a nuclear weapon." Patricia wasn't wrong. Within a week, divorce papers were served to Rachel at the motel where she'd been staying since her parents refused to take her in. The prenup's adultery clause was airtight. Rachel would receive nothing. No claim to our house, no access to our joint savings, no alimony, no split of my retirement accounts or investment portfolio. 5 years of marriage, and she'd walk away with exactly what she'd brought into it. Nothing. Rachel tried to fight it, of course. She hired a lawyer named Bradley Taylor with money she'd borrowed from a friend, one of the few people who still returned her calls. Taylor was young, inexperienced, probably fresh out of law school and desperate for clients. During the preliminary hearing, he argued that the prenup was punitive, unfair, designed to trap his client in an impossible situation. Judge Vincent had heard it all before. Your client signed this document voluntarily with legal representation present before the marriage occurred, he stated firmly. She was specifically advised about the adultery clause and its consequences. The prenup is enforceable. Rachel's face crumpled when Vincent delivered his ruling. She looked across the courtroom at me with eyes that begged for mercy I no longer possessed. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no pity, just cold, empty justice. The details of Rachel's downward spiral reached me through mutual acquaintances who seemed to think I'd want updates on my ex-wife's misery. I didn't ask for the information, but I didn't stop it either. Knowledge is power, and I was collecting both. Tyler Cross, her knight in shining BMW, had vanished completely. Rachel called him dozens of times that first week, sent text messages that went unanswered, even showed up at his apartment building only to learn he'd broken his lease and moved out of state. Tyler had been looking for a fun affair with a bored housewife, not a messy divorce and public humiliation. When the situation exploded, he ran like the coward he was. Rachel's desperate attempts to contact me were equally futile. Long emails appeared in my inbox, rambling apologies, promises that it had meant nothing, pleas for financial help, offers to do anything to earn my forgiveness. I deleted them all without reading past the first sentence. Whatever she had to say, I didn't want to hear it. Her parents maintained their position with a ruthlessness that surprised me. David and Margaret had built their reputation in our small community on traditional values, church attendance, and moral authority. Their daughter's public adultery had humiliated them beyond forgiveness. When Rachel called begging to come home, Margaret hung up on her. When she appeared at their door crying, David told her to leave and never come back. She made her choice, David told me over coffee 6 weeks after the discovery. She chose to throw away everything good in her life for a stranger. That's not the daughter we raised. Meanwhile, I was thriving in ways that surprised me. The promotion continued paying dividends. Without Rachel's constant need for attention and expensive tastes, I had more money than I'd ever had before. I traveled less by choice now, having proven myself valuable enough to delegate more responsibilities to subordinates. Work felt easier, less stressful, more rewarding. I started dating casually. Nothing serious, just dinners and companionship with women who understood that I wasn't ready for anything complicated. I joined a gym, lost the 20 pounds I'd gained during my marriage, began feeling physically strong again. Friends commented on how good I looked, how much lighter I seemed, as if a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I drove past the diner where Rachel had found work. It was past 9 p.m. near closing time, and I could see her through the window serving the last few customers of the night. She looked exhausted, older. Her beauty faded like a photograph left in sunlight. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her makeup minimal, her movements mechanical and tired. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. Just complete and total indifference. A year later, I still have dinner with her parents every few weeks. Rachel has no one. That's not cruelty. That's just consequences. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I sit across from David and Margaret at Giovanni's, the same Italian restaurant where Rachel first suggested the prenup. It's become our regular spot for monthly dinners, a tradition that feels more genuine than anything from my marriage ever did. How's work treating you? David asks, cutting into his chicken parmesan. Better every day, I answer honestly. The promotion keeps paying off. I'm traveling maybe twice a quarter now by choice. Built up enough trust to delegate the smaller accounts. Margaret smiles warmly. You look good, Andrew, she observes. Healthy, happy. I am happy, in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Life has a clarity now that I never experienced during those 5 years of marriage. No walking on eggshells, no second-guessing myself, no feeling like I was constantly failing some unspoken test. Are you seeing anyone? Margaret asks gently. She's asked this question for 6 months now, always with the same careful hopefulness. Actually, yes, I reply. Her name's Sarah. She's a paralegal at Goldman & Associates. Nothing too serious yet, but... I pause, searching for the right words. I'm open to possibilities again. David nods approvingly. Good, he says. You deserve happiness, Andrew. You deserve better than what our daughter gave you. They never say Rachel's name directly anymore. She's always our daughter, or she, or simply absent from conversation entirely. I know from David's carefully neutral tone that they still haven't reconciled with her. Margaret's silence on the subject speaks volumes about wounds that haven't healed and forgiveness that isn't coming. I don't ask about Rachel anymore. I don't need to know how she's doing, where she's living, whether she's found someone new or remains alone with her choices. That part of my life is closed, sealed off like a room in a house I no longer visit. Later that evening, I sit on my renovated deck with a glass of good scotch, watching the sunset paint my backyard in shades of gold and amber. The kitchen renovation turned out perfectly. Marble countertops, custom cabinets, professional-grade appliances. Everything Rachel had dreamed of, built after she was gone to enjoy it. Sometimes I think about the woman I thought I married. The one who laughed at my jokes, planned beach vacations, talked about our future with stars in her eyes. I wonder if she was ever real, or if I was just too in love to see the truth underneath the performance. I don't feel anger anymore. That burned out months ago, leaving only ash and acceptance. I don't feel satisfaction either. There's no joy in watching someone self-destruct, even someone who betrayed everything we'd built together. I feel peace. The kind of deep, settled peace that comes from surviving betrayal and discovering you're stronger than you thought. The prenup Rachel insisted on became the instrument of her own destruction, a perfect example of cosmic justice that I couldn't have planned if I'd tried. Some people say forgiveness sets you free. They're wrong. Boundaries set you free. Consequences set you free. I'm free because I refused to let her betrayal define me. She chose her path. I chose mine. And I'm finally at peace with that. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.